We are going to make custom monsters tonight. So, let's hop into that. We got some good priming, right? We opened up those several boxes of minis, and Fluffy Sheep even kind of came up with an interesting idea. It's not bubble wrap, it's an ultra rare spreading bubble fungus monster. You can create a spreading bubble fungus monster yourself in D&D 5th edition. And we're going to go over rules and considerations for how you can go about doing that. So let's, all right, class, open up your DMGs to page 273, please. Come on, class. Now. Bobo, you sit down. You behave, young man. I'm warning you, Bobo. I don't want to send you to detention. Detention? Or Saturday school? Usher. Yeah. Drools on the desk. All right. So, in our DMGs on 273. Oh, yeah, I understand, Bobo. You can always just say, but I'm getting them for you. What's this over here? Oh, yeah, I got them for you. And Awu is doodling. Class? I say, class, please. This will be on your D&D final exam. This is suddenly like DM High School, like DMHS or something like that. Dungeon Master High School. It's the next like fighting / high school slice of life / drama / rom-com anime of the year. Yeah, Dark Wolf. I don't know. Here, I can try. The angle worked. Here, I'll adjust the light a little bit too. I hope that works. All right. So anyway, our next episode of DM High School is in session. Okay, I'm glad it's looking good on your all's end. The monster manual contains hundreds of ready-to-play monsters, but it doesn't include every monster that you can imagine. Part of the D&D experience is the simple joy of creating new monsters and customizing existing ones, if for no other reason than to surprise and delight your players with something they've never faced before. Ooh, pardon. Dark Wolf says D&D High School sounds like a nerd-based dating sim. The first step in the process is... Oh, you would not be able to walk, Bobo? Well, I'm trying to look out for you, brother. I'm trying to be a wingman for you. The first step in the process is coming up with the concept for your monster. What makes it unique? Where does it live? What role do you want it to serve in your adventure, your campaign, or your world? What does it look like? Does it have any weird abilities? Once you have the answers to these questions, you can start figuring out how to represent the monster in your game. And I do enjoy that they're opening up with that, because let the concept of the monster flow first. You can balance the CR and the damage and the AC. Don't worry about the numbers. If you want to create a custom monster for your campaign, do it first, conceptually. You know your story. You know your world. You know what you want to do. And so think about the things first. What's the ecosystem in which it lives? Where is it on the food chain? What motivates it? Is it intelligent? Etc. and so forth. So once you have an idea for your monster, you'll need statistics to represent it. The first question you should ask yourself is, can I use statistics that already exist? For most, I think for a lot of what you're looking for, yes you can. Don't be afraid to crack open the monster manual and just take a concept and make a couple adjustments. reskin it with a different a different description. It has scales instead of feathers. It has dark vision instead of normal vision. Or it has I don't think it's an official sense in 5th edition, but undead, I believe undead used to have life sight. Life sight. They could see living creatures apart from unliving things. And so, that other undead were either invisible to them, or they didn't really care because they didn't show up on a special sense. And so that also meant that you couldn't, you couldn't be invisible around them because they still sensed your life force. A goblin to a nilbog. Yep. A stat block in the monster manual might make a good starting point for your monster. Imagine, for example, that you want to create an intelligent arboreal predator that hunts elves. Arboreal, it lives in trees. There's no such monster in the monster manual, but the Quaggoth is a savage humanoid predator with a climbing speed. You could borrow the Quaggoth stat block for your new monster, changing nothing but the creature's name. You can also make minor tweaks, such as replacing the Quaggoth's language, Undercommon, with that of something more appropriate, such as Elvish or Sylvan. And so here, it so happens I conveniently have a Quaggoth on screen for you. Actually, there's a couple Quaggoths that we've busted open, too. So here you have a... Here you have a stat block ready to use. And instead of looking like this, you could describe it some other way. Do you want to make it look more like a lemur or a monkey? You can do so. Maybe you actually want to give it a big prehensile tail. You can modify it along those lines without really changing the CR or a lot of the stat block. It's still a challenge rating 2 creature. If you want, you could reduce its dark vision to 60 feet, or you could take away its dark vision if it primarily, maybe it hunts during the day. Or you can swap out dark vision with something else, another kind of a sense. Or give it, I don't know, you could give it advantage on perception checks that rely on sound. Something like that. And so here you go. It's a simple reskin job. And by the way, there's a variant that they give you down here too for a Thonot, where it's a Quaggoth, but it can cast some spells. Adds 1 more CR. Do you need a fiery phoenix? Take the giant eagle or rock. Give it immunity to fire, and allow it to deal fire damage with its attacks. Need a flying monkey? Consider a baboon with wings as a flying speed. Almost any monster you can imagine can be built using ones that already exist. Adapting a stat block is far less time-consuming than creating one from scratch, and there are changes you can make to an existing monster that have no effect on its challenge rating, such as swapping languages, changing its alignment, or adding special senses. However, once you change the creature's offensive or defensive ability, such as its hit points or damage, its challenge rating might need to change, as shown later. But again, don't worry about the details up front. Don't let the numbers make you cautious about creating your own custom monsters. Let the process happen. If a monster wields a manufactured weapon, you can replace that weapon with a different one. For example, you could replace a hobgoblin's longsword with a halberd. Don't forget to change the damage and the attack's reach where appropriate. Also, Be aware of the consequences of switching from a one-handed weapon to a two-handed weapon or vice versa. For example, a hobgoblin wielding a halberd loses the benefit of its shield, so its AC decreases by 2. Another simple way to customize a monster is to add a special trait. You can add a special trait of your own devising, or pick up a special trait from one of the many creatures in the monster manual. For example, you can create a goblin-spider hybrid by giving the normal goblin the spider climb special trait. Turn an ordinary troll into a two-headed troll by giving it the two heads special trait. Or turn an owlbear into a flying owlbear by giving it wings and a giant owl's flying speed. So, after the prompt, here you go. Come up with what you want this thing to do. Pardon. Now, I don't have a random roll. I don't have a random roll guide for a monster. I suppose I could make one if you all like this exercise enough. Instead of instead of making a random character, maybe sometime we can just make some random monsters as well. Okay. Yeah, Santa, it is. Flying owlbear, noted, says Dark Wolf. Memory lapse, why not? Yeah. We can, well, that's the whole point of tonight. I want to try and make, well, definitely at least one, if not two different types of monsters. Owlist bear is the correct term for a flying owlbear. Because it is more owl than bear. It is the owlist bear there ever was. If all you need are simple stats for a monster of a particular challenge rating, follow the steps here. If you want to create something more akin to the monster stat block in the monster manual, skip ahead to creating a monster stat block section. So yeah, if you want a quick and dirty, so if Santa wants to throw a challenge rating 6 monster at his party, he can come up with whatever fluff description that he wants and tack on some kind of a climbing speed or dark vision or a language. But here's the core stat block that makes a challenge rating a challenge rating 6 monster just that. +3 proficiency bonus, AC of 15. It has between 146 and 160 hit points. Its attack bonus is +6. And it deals between 39 and 44 damage per round. DPR. And its save DC against its effects of tripping you, or, I don't know, a fire breath, or some other special ability, is 15. There you go. Nice and easy. Just like traps. For as much as you say, oh, traps are iconic to D&D. Right? Dungeons is in the name of the game. The actual factual stat block on traps in the DMG is maybe 2 pages long with some suggestions. Because all you really need is are the saves and the damage. The kind of the lethality of the trap. Aside from that, it could be whatever you want. Spikes coming up out of the floor. It could be an explosion in a room. It could be a pitfall. It could be a lot of different things. You don't need 10 pages of traps telling you and your imagination what to do. Here's the simple mechanics, and you build your world. You do have a D30, don't I? Could for now roll it for CR 1 to 30. I can generate one on the dice roller. I don't have a physical one on me right now, memory lapse. You want to make a Feyrret, a weasel with pixie stats. That sounds a bit scary. I don't know how big we're going, memory lapse. We could look at we'll look at the Feyrret, something like that, because that would be kind of a simple reskin. Because really, to make that, you would just take a pixie, and I mean, you could sense, you could see if a Feyrret has anything special, and you could just pineapple pen the two together. I don't know if it would even necessarily change the CR rating. It would just be up to you. Do you want to make a fairy with Feyrret type traits, or do you want to make a Feyrret with fairy type traits? Because a fairy, I don't know, in the monster manual, we could look it up, but a fairy might be a CR2 creature, whereas a Feyrret could be a CR 1/8 or something like that. Bobo, I hope you at least make it a bit crazy looking, not just someone trying to tame and wham this Feyrret one-shot scene. Oh, Bobo, so that's advice to Dark Wolf. Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. We can try reskinning something, and then we can create one. Usher says, I always wanted to know how a Death Knight becomes a Death Knight. Is there a Death Apprentice or a Squire? Okay, and this'll hold your hand through the process. What is your expected? You say, well, I want to create a CR5 creature to go against my party, because this is how I feel it'll be balanced, or I want to provide them a really deadly challenge, whatever it is. A single monster with a challenge rating equal to the adventurer's level is by itself a fair challenge for a group of 4 characters. If the monster is meant to be fought in pairs or groups, its expected challenge rating should be lower than the party's level. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that your monster must have a challenge rating equal to the level of the characters to be a worthy challenge. Keep in mind that monsters with lower challenge ratings can be a threat to higher level characters when encountered in groups. Alright, so we'll tell you what. Pardon. We'll go through the actual monster creation process step by step in our part 2. Because our part 1, we were doing, we're having fun with miniatures. Why don't we do a reskin monster, and we can use this Feyrret as an example. And then we'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll do a step-by-step monster build and go from there. Alright, so if we take a look, you want to apply a Fey template to a Feyrret. Or a Feyrret. So here are the different monster types. We're now in the class, I say. Please open your monster manuals to page 7. I'm sorry, page 6. Oh, don't you laugh at me. Class, page 6, please. If you want to graduate from DM school, you have to pay attention. Oh! Treating me in such a manner. I can only imagine what you do in your defense against the dark arts class. Ivlon, you're just going to have to share with someone then. Someone, please. Please? Yes, you share with Ivlon. AG. Fey with Feyrret traits is easy dealing. Pixie Sprite Brownie with a Feyrret head. Give it Fey stats. Give it a scent or stink attack or a bite attack to make it unique. Good suggestions, AG. In that case, it's kind of a Fey skunk. A funk. It's a funk. Alright, so Fey are magical creatures closely tied to the forces of nature. They dwell in twilight groves and misty forests. In some worlds, they are closely tied to the Feywild, also called the Plane of Fairy. Some are also found in the outer planes, particularly the planes of Arborea and the Beastlands. Fae include dryads, pixies, and satyrs. I'd share if I lived near him. Alrighty. Hey, McCoolman, we're doing very well. We're about ready to do a technique to make your own monster, and this is reskinning or slightly repurposing one that already exists. Alright, so it'll go through its AC, hit points, proficiency bonus, and you can look at different types of movement speed. The monster manual pairs very well here with the info you're going to get out of the DMG. And between the two, you'll build the monster that you want to make. Here's the dirty little secret, by the way. You know, the original D&D players, you know, to come up with monsters, you know, we're talking, you know, Gary Gygax, etc. They would just go to a toy store, and they would purchase plastic figures, maybe like cheap plastic figures or ones that were on sale, and they would just kit bash them. Or in other words, they'd cut the head off of something and put it on something else. How do you think an owlbear came around? Don't be afraid to do that out there. If you have a bunch of little toys, plastic figurines, I don't know if any of you hit up Toys R Us if you're here in the United States. If you hit up Toys R Us as it was going out of business and you picked up a bunch of plastic animals and such, don't be afraid to, you know, mix and match the parts like some sort of mad scientist and come up with miniatures of your own that look like these different monsters. All right, so different types of perception, and we'll go from here. So you want to base this, Dark Wolf. Megatron is now an AD&D monster, or is now a D&D monster. Which kind of Fae would you like to pineapple pen in with a Feyrret? Well, right, but she wants to give, like, she wants to base it on some kind of Fae, like a brownie or a pixie or a sprite or something like that. So what would, and so I was wondering which kind of Fae, if we're gonna do a reskin, if we're gonna reskin a brownie, are we gonna reskin a pixie, something along those lines? You should probably have innate spellcasting. And I think we'll find that that a Gathering of Nerds. Thank you for the auto host. Okay. So you want to base it on a pixie. So we're going to take a weasel, okay? We'll take a weasel and we'll bash it together with a pixie. For Feyrret with Fey traits, you can add the Fey template. But how about a giant weasel with the shadow creature template? A guardian of the Underly Court. Or the Unseelie. There's not necessarily... I mean, some descriptors, as far as I know, might come with some basic understandings. For instance, undead don't have... Well, it used to be labeled as such that they don't have a metabolic... a metabolic process, as it was referred to in third ed, if I recall correctly. But if you're undead, odds are, that label means you don't need to eat, breathe, sleep, etc. And it's $253 for a pixie. Sure, so we have $341 for a weasel. Or we could go giant weasel. AG makes an interesting point. And then we have $253. Whoops. Hey, a Periton. We opened up one of these earlier with our miniatures. Petal gowns and acorn caps are so last summer. So says River Gleam Pixie Fashionista. You're planning to DM tomorrow and roll 20? Yeah, hey, cool man, I totally understand. I don't have a lot of experience running on roll 20 either, but you know what? You go and you try, and you take one thing, you take it one step at a time. There's also some people in our mentor network who may be able to help you out as well. Pouty Lips, I'll be going at least until 3 a.m. Eastern tonight. I'm willing to go as late as 5, depending on the conversation and such. Though I can't stick around much more than that, because I need to make sure that I take care of a couple things around the house, including taking the garbage out before the garbage truck rolls around. Because they've started coming earlier, around 5:30 in the morning, and yikes. So... Alright, so let's take a look at our pixie. So they're a tiny fae. They have a walking speed of 10 feet and a fly of 30. So they have innate spellcasting. They do count as fae. And they have superior invisibility. So let's take a look about what we could do for the weasel on page 341. Keen hearing and smell. The weasel has advantage on wisdom perception checks, and that rely on hearing or smell. And they can make a bite attack. The speed of the weasel is 30 feet. Yeah, 30 feet walking. Coolman, if you look at D&D Beyond, there is a lot of information that is provided freely on that website. And if I remember correctly, didn't Daly give you access to his core rulebooks, McCoolman? There is a half dragon in the monster manual, AG. So the Feyrret could have a 30 walk and 30 fly. And let's see. It probably wouldn't have the stealth because it has superior invisibility. Perception plus 3 could be something. And it has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing or smell with a bite attack. Okay, so let's look at 30 feet of movement. By the way, let me make this larger so you all can read it easier. 30 feet. stealth +5, perception +3. Keen hearing and smell, pardon me. Bite +5, 1 piercing damage. All right, so her perception and stealth is higher naturally. And so for our Feyrret, unless Dark Wolf, did you want this to be a normal, so a tiny sized ferret, or did you want to make this a giant to base it on a weasel? Did you want it to be based on a regular weasel or a giant weasel? Okay. I thought it sounded like he gave you he could give you access to read his books, that he already had opened up. I wasn't sure the details of what you two had worked out. Okay, on the tiny weasel, got it. So an AC of 15. Hit points, it has 1 hit point. Speed. If you want, Dark Wolf. Well, if you want, why don't we flip it around? Why don't we give it a speed of 30 feet, because it's a quick little thing, and a fly speed of 10 feet if it manifests its wings? How about that? I think that could be a good compromise for your Feyrret. I think its scores can be the same. 2, 20, 8, 10, 14, and 15. Skills, perception +4, stealth +7, senses, passive perception 14. Now, it does have normal intelligence. You can have it speak whatever language that you'd like it to speak. If you want it to speak Sylvan, it can. If you want it to speak something else, Elven, if you really want, you can give it multiple languages. The languages do not change its challenge rating. It can innately cast the following spells, requiring only its pixie dust as a component. Now, if you want to replace pixie dust with, I don't know, it has to use a whisker, right? It plucks a whisker and it boop, and its whiskers are the equivalent of fairy dust. And so actually people might hunt ferrets for their magical whiskers because they might be seen as universal spellcasting components. And that could actually make the ferrets endangered or embittered towards humans who traditionally only want to interact with them to pluck their whiskers. Now, this is saying that it's going to get one cantrip. For the pixie, it's suggesting the Druidcraft spell. But look, we have a cantrip that is slotted. Do you want to replace Druidcraft with another type of cantrip that would be more effective for a weasel to live its life? And if so, what would you like that to be? Would this Feyrret make dancing lights? Would it have prestidigitation? Would this Feyrret have vicious mockery as a cantrip, as an innate attack? Is it kind of a savage or a bitter Feyrret? Or its whiskers are more like a focus and they shimmer. Okay, so it starts casting and its whiskers kind of like go forward and are... Got it. So you get an at will, and then you get 1 time a day each. And then here is a little spell book that you can replace bits. You can just copy it and say, yeah, this seems good. You can do a lot of things from this point. Confusion, dancing lights, detect good and evil, detect thoughts, dispel magic, entangle, fly. So you're actually getting a decent spell book out of here. You are also then going to get so 341 for Weasel. Superior invisibility. The Feyrret magically turns invisible until its concentration ends, as if concentrating on a spell. Any equipment the Feyrret wears or carries is invisible with it. And then it can get a bite attack similar to what a weasel would get, which is based off of dexterity. And so if that's the case, it has a +5 to hit, so it has a +2 proficiency. So it'll end up being a +3 for the fairy. Oh yeah, bite for 1 piercing. So we've taken care of this. So, ooh. If that's the case, actually a bite I think is strength based. No, strength is -4 and we get a +5. So they might be treating it as a it says a melee weapon attack. Oh, but then again it's only dealing 1 piercing damage, so yeah, it probably is based off of strength. So, all right, if we're going to keep it at that, that only so that has a strength of 2. All right, so a bite is going to be similar. but it does have a natural attack. So this little Feyrret can give you a chomp. If you want it based on Dex, that would be changing its attack stat, and that would change its CR. I can imagine you could make it based on Dex if you really want to. But we're suddenly going from a very basic +5 to hit to something greater because its dexterity is maxed out. Because it's at will, it would be a cantrip, Dark Wolf. Have it Twinkle Whiskers to Force Blast and at will, and Feyrret Dance for confusion 1 a day, rather destructive and Feyrret-like. So it has a natural attack, and then it also is going to have keen hearing and smell. Advantage on wisdom perception. For these 2 senses. And then superior invisibility. Oh, we already have that. Dancing lights. Okay, so for here, we have its spells are listed alphabetically. So we would have to take a look at each of the spells, and let's do that here. So we have confusion, dancing lights, detect evil and good, detect thoughts, dispel magic, entangle, fly, phantasmal force, polymorph. This is what made pixies quite scary, and sleep, because they could just polymorph you. Yeah, it's a DC 12 save, but if you're facing like a final villain, and I botch my roll and I roll a 1 or a 2, suddenly you've turned my big bad evil guy. You know, we have in Dragonlance. You know, here we have one of the Dragon Lords. One of the big evil, like, I control an entire race of chromatic dragons. And I roll a 1 or a 2 on my save. And suddenly, a pixie, a challenge rating 1/4 pixie, just turned my big bad evil guy into an actual ferret. Yeah, it's 1 time a day for these spells. Hey, we have a cat now. Hi. Here, say hi to everyone. You got magical whiskers too. Look at that. See? Oh, shake those magical whiskers. Yeah, he wants to be a Feyrret too. Oh, he's so fluffy. He's so fluffy. Phantasmal Force is a 2nd level illusion. Then we have Polymorph is a 4th level. Sleep is a 1st level. Fly is a 3rd. Entangle is a 1st. Dispel Magic, whoops, is a 3rd. Detect Thoughts is a 2nd. Detect Evil and Good is a 1st. Oh, there you go. He's laying on his side now. And Dancing Lights is a cantrip. But even though it's a cantrip, it can only be used once a day. And Confusion is a 4th level. All right. So if you wanted to use this as a template, Dark Wolf, you can say, all right, I like what it is. I'm just going to import this. Or you can swap some things out. But these are a list of its spells that it can cast once per day each. Okay, so you want to replace Dancing Lights with Minor Illusion. Okay. Here, just to show Minor Illusion. That way we know that we've replaced it. Have you ever done the D&D dice games with the viewers, or would that not work? The D&D dice games. I don't know if I'm following what you're saying, Pouty Lips. Hey, Forsaken. Yep, this is welcome to the stream, where I will eat in front of you, and also I have cats that will show up time and again. Tasha's Hideous Laughter for Entangle. Okay. Actually, I guess we'll just bold it. Oh, okay, you've been painting? Gotcha. Now, when you're picking your spells for this creature, if you're doing this at home, if you want to say, well, look, I should probably stick to the Druid spell list, or I should stick to the Nature Cleric spell list, you can do that. Or you can say, well, I'm gonna take spells that are thematic for the creature. So I don't really care if it's a bard spell, if it's a druid spell, or you could say, well, if it casts off charisma, I guess then I'll just stick to bard, sorcerer, warlock, well, actually in that case, druid would be wisdom. So you can reserve yourself for those style of spells, and you can say, well, look, it's a fey creature, so maybe I'll go warlock because it has a pact. It's not a warlock, but it has a pact and is getting fey magic from some arch-fey creature. And so then you can say, I will use the spell list available to arch-fey warlocks. Because it would be thematic. And if you're doing that, then you are building a monster that is a part of an ecosystem. And you're building the story beyond just the monster. You're making connections. You're making, you are making a big bad evil guy, or you're making this otherworldly entity, which could be neutral, it could be wrathful, it could be helpful. And here is an agent of that great power that's in front of you, in the form of this tiny Feyrret. Yeah, the Pixie does have a better stealth than the Feyrret did. Color spray for sleep. You're going for fun, sparkly spells. Look up Fairy Fire, Dark Wolf. Or, I mean, I could do it here. Fairy Fire is literally that. First level evocation. Each object in a 20-foot cube within range is outlined in blue, green, or violet light, your choice. Any creature in the area when the spell is cast is also outlined in light if it fails a dexterity saving throw. For the duration, objects and affected creatures shed dim light in a 10-foot radius. Any attack roll against an affected creature or object has advantage if the attacker can see it, and the affected creature or object can't benefit from being invisible. And so if you wanted to have Fairy Fire replace another first level, you could have that be Detect, Evil and Good. Or if you say, you know what, I'd rather have 2 first levels, then just replace Detect Thoughts with a level 1 spell, and you could downgrade. You're not necessarily out anything. This isn't a damage spell. This is a utility spell that happens to be 2nd level. So it's up to you if you want to do a 1-for-1 swap, or if you say, well, okay, so there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 spells that are one-ofs for this creature, and then you could just choose 10 spells. Or go less if one is particularly powerful, or maybe go a little bit more. But if you have 15 choices for your creature to cast, that can sometimes slow the game down, or it could be confusing. Plunder loot, yes. What happens is for 1,000 bits or a $10 donation with the link down below, I will open up a box of miniatures, and then you can get the large uncommon or the rare piece that's inside. And so what you do is, for all the boxes you pop, like Derek popped some boxes, Diadems did earlier. And then I will send you those figurines in the mail, because as part of the $10, the shipping is included already. You want to do Fairy Fighter for Detect Evil and Good? Sure. And again, too, if you want to give Druidcraft to this creature, you can as well. It'd be once a day, but it could make something bloom. Yeah, Forsaken Synath popped a box earlier too and got a dragon out of it. But yeah, Plunder Loot as a way to help raise money for the channel, so I can continue to buy equipment and better gear, including my next kind of big goal for the channel is to be able to get sort of a mobile studio setup. And by that, I don't need like $10,000 or anything. I won't turn it down. But to get some cameras and some equipment so that when I run D&D at the store, or heck, even if Dark Wolf wanted to set it up and broadcast when she runs D&D at the store, that there's a setup and a place that we can stream tabletop content. So you all could watch me run Curse of Strahd, for example, if the cameras were set up at the shop. A new chair. Well, ultimately, Usher, I would rather improve the channel more directly. The chair kind of provides. I mean, look, the chair is supporting me, but it's not in danger of collapsing. It's just kind of, it's cracked and peeling. I have cats, so you can imagine what the back of the chair looks like, just over the course of years. But I wouldn't put the money towards a chair. Oh, thank you, Bobo. Real quick for you, keen hearing and smell. Yeah, it does have keen hearing and smell as a holdover from the Weasel entry in the Monster Manual. Thank you very much for that, Bobo. I appreciate that. Think about your back support. You need to be in good health too. I appreciate that, Usher. I do kind of lean forward a lot. I don't really have a lumbar pillar, a lumbar support or anything. I don't. If I lean back in my chair, I'm very distant from the camera with the way that my desk is set up. My desk isn't really optimal for broadcasting, and so a lot of times you'll see me like this, and this is me leaning forward with my elbows on the desk as I'm addressing you in the camera. Yep, no problem, Memory Lapse. I appreciate you you keeping a an eye and ear open, or I guess in this case an ear and a nose. Plunder Loot. Oh, Spit! Your Plunder Loot is adopting a box of minis. Conjure animals for dispel magic. Sure. All right, so Plunder Loot. I actually have 4 boxes. There we go. I have 4 boxes of Monster Menagerie currently on me. Now, I may have some more Rage of Demons and Elemental Evil at the store, but if you want to sponsor I got to grab a box of Elemental Evil for Diadems. If you want to sponsor a box right now, I can pop open a box of your choice, 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you want to choose by number, or just, you tell me which one you want me to pop open. Or if you want to wait until I can maybe grab a couple other boxes from the store tomorrow. You need to take care of your lower back. No good sitting like that. Well, I appreciate that, Bobo. I'm not trying to avoid it, but there's just other things that I got to put my money towards than a chair. And so I can comfortably lean forward like this and still be able to address you all. Number 3. All right, so 1, 2, 3, and this is your fate, Mr. Plunder Loot. I swear, this one doesn't have bubble wrap in it. Oh gosh. Okay, and if you want plunder, I can hold your minis all together, and you let me know when you want me to send them, and I'll send them all in one package to you. Question, I made a character on D&D Beyond. Okay, so what's going on, McCool Man? And Darkwolf, let me know... Oh, hello. Let me know what else you would like to replace for spells, if any. Alright, well... You do have a flying base, Mr. Plunderloot. It is plunder, but I'm not doing it for being shrewd like that. That's up to you. If you buy 1 box a week, I'll send you 1 shipment a week. If you buy 1 box a week and you say just send it to me at the end of the month, I can do that too for you as well. That's up to you. You've already gone out of your way and sponsored the minis. And so I want to make sure that I'm following through with what's going to be best for you. Okay, so McCoolman says, question, I made a character on D&D Beyond, and it says that I join your campaign. I don't have a lot of experience with D&D Beyond, McCoolman. I personally can't help you with that, about message prompts. But maybe there's someone in the audience who can help you out with understanding what that means or what that says. Okay. So, Mr. Plunder Loot. First things first. We have a common imp. A common imp. So you want a familiar? Here you go. Here's a little tiny demon for you. If my camera will... There we go. If my camera will focus. Meh, I'm a little imp. Next up, we have Lerthar Golgrin. Or it looks like a dwarven dual wielder. So if, you don't have to necessarily go by the name of the miniature, but we have a dwarf that is dual wielding. Bobo, thank you very much for being with us. It's great to see you again. Thank you for your concern about my back. I hope that you can get some miniatures. You can always have your girlfriend come here and we'll lecture her. And thank you very much for the bits. Be well, my friend. Then we have a ghost. Actually, you can kind of see through her, can't you? But yes, a ghost. Woo! It's not focusing too well. There. It looks like that. Okay, then lastly but not leastly, this is your big pull from the box. Hey, McCoolman, thank you so much for that. Your piece, Mr. Plunderloot, is a manticore. A manticore. And yes, Mr. Plunderloot is now the stream boss. You took out Macabre Derek. So it's a manticore with a flying base. So Plunder, you let me know when you want me to ship. At any point in time is fine. There's no minimum or maximum amount of boxes if you want me to crack some open for you. You tell me when, all right? And I'll send it. You like a lot of creatures. Well, Plunder, not only then are we doing the random opening where you keep the rare or the uncommon. But if you come over here to where it says fundraising and prizes, these are all the other miniatures that we've opened up on stream that are available in the marketplace. So at some other point in time, if you want the Manticore and you want 2 Magmin, then we have 2 Magmin that are available. If there's not a price next to it, it's because it's a $3 figure. You already meet shipping requirements, right? There's already a shipment going out to you. So it would just be 50 cents per figure instead of a base $3 if you're doing a custom order on the side. Kim's Pact, a Manticore. But I want to say Manticore. Yeah, okay, so there you go. Forsaken looks like was able to help you out. So probably what happened, Daly probably invited you to a campaign. And if you join that campaign, you'll be able to access all of his books. And that way you won't have to purchase them for yourself. Oh, the White Draco Lich? Yeah, yep, it's still there. You want to replace a chromatic orb? Or with a chromatic orb? I take a cup of Manticore, please, and a piece of cake. Well, Dark Wolf, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna get up and I need to refresh. I need to get a nice pitcher of water here. If you want to continue noodling over the spells, I think we've done a good job of showing how you can reskin or pineapple pen some monsters together. So here you have your custom Feyrret creature. It even has its own little spell book and whatnot. I'm gonna take about a 10-minute break. It might be less. I don't know. We're moving at a good pace tonight. And I don't think there's anything I have to do on the side other than just refresh myself, get some water, and walk around a little bit here. Because, hey, my chair may be old and creaky, and I may have to lean forward in it here when I'm broadcasting, but I do get up and stretch regularly. So, you know, when I tell you I'm taking my time and I'm taking a 10-minute break or whatever, I do get up, I do some stretches, I walk around the house. I am trying not to just get into a funk of sorts. How do warlocks work in your world? Well, because warlocks do not get their powers from gods. Yeah, do you say it either or either? Or ither? I haven't heard anyone say ither. Katie Sue, welcome. All right, so let's go Goodberry. I think Goodberry's a first level spell. And you wanted Chromatic Orb for something else. I forget what level Chromatic Orb is. Katie, for the part that you were watching last night, I hoped you enjoyed me running D&D. Chromatic Orb's a first level. Okay. And you know what? If you wanted to, Dark Wolf, I mean, Goodberry creates more than just one Goodberry, if I recall correctly. Actually, let's check real quick. You presumably could do something like with the other spells, you take away confusion and fly, and then you can say detect thoughts 3 times per day, right? Because you have detect thoughts once, you get rid of that for twice, you get rid of that for 3 times. You could feasibly do that too, I'd imagine. Although, if it turns into an attack spell and not a utility spell, that could increase the challenge rating because suddenly it's a lot more magically offensive. Up to 10 berries. Yeah, okay. Oh, and you want grease? All right, so we'll have grease instead of fly. And so that leaves detect thoughts and confusion if you want to slot other ones. It's up to 10, yeah. Katie Sue, we just went over one way that you can create your own custom monsters. And so Dark Wolf wanted a Feyrret. So a Fey-empowered Feyrret. And so we are pineapple penning the two together. And this is what we're getting. And she's at the last step of modifying the pixie. So she's basing it off of a pixie and a weasel. We're combining a pixie and a weasel. And so she's modifying its spells, its daily spells. I'm going to take a break here. And when I come back, though, we're going to try building a monster from scratch. You know, we'll think of something. Pardon. There we go. Misty Step. They might seem like godly creatures, or in their own way, perhaps they are. You know, but warlocks exist because of a different type of magic. that is imbued. It's similar to divine casting, and that's something that the PCs haven't quite figured out in my world. Although the warlocks are more like an organization as I run them, and they are called the Pactia, Pactia, the Pactia. And for a while, they actually had the closest thing that I had to other dimensions, which was they sealed themselves away in sort of like a pocket that you could only access magically. So it was somewhat similar to the Feywild or the Feywild or the Shadowfell. And in 4th edition, obviously there was more. In fact, there was a whole ecosystem where each of these communities that existed inside of this special place were at odds with each other. And in order to continue to receive magic, the magic of a warlock was empowered, or you received magic from your patron. Your patron received amplification of its own powers through souls. And so warlocks were soul harvesters. And if a warlock were to kill you in combat, your soul would then go to the faction that killed you, to their own version of their little demi-plane, and would be stored in some fashion. One of the Pactia stored it as water in an ocean. One of the Pactia would store them as little crystals, and so forth and so on. And in order to make sure that both in and out of character, that warlocks didn't just turn into lol random murder hobos, you could only harvest the soul of someone who actually threatened your life. In other words, your soul had to be put up for grabs as well, because by pledging yourself to a pact, when you die, your soul goes to your plane to help empower your patron and to fuel magic for other warlocks. And so your own existence had to be at stake, which meant that if you snuck into someone's house and you cut their throat while they were sleeping, you wouldn't harvest a soul, because that person didn't threaten your life in any way. And so as a DM, it was a good like gatekeeping measure, but it also made perfect sense in the in-game world. And I appreciate you asking about that, Kames Pact. And I'm glad that the way that I've presented my world kind of stuck with you and is causing you to ask some questions. And mirror image. Okay, so here you go, Dark Wolf. Here are the stats for your CR 1/4 Feyrret. A tiny creature, 30 movement, 10 feet fly, and it has all of these little abilities here. So let's see. This would be conjure animals. Oh no, I'm sorry. Chromatic orb. Color spray. Conjure animals. Fairy fire. Goodberry grease. Minor illusion, mirror image. Minor Illusion, Mirror Image, Misty Step, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. There you go. Yep, Usher, I'm going to get up and take my break now. We have finished the Feyrret as a reskin animal, and when we are as a reskin monster, and when we come back, we'll build one from scratch from whatever ideas you weirdos out there have. Y'all, thank you, McCool Man. Kames, I'll address what you brought up here when we get back, but I got to get up and take a break, okay?